Lyria sat alone by the observation window. The stars outside twinkled like distant fires, but no one paid attention to her. The station's lounge was usually crowded, filled with merchants, diplomats, and explorers of every shape and color. Yet somehow, she remained invisible. Every day she watched others laugh, discuss, and share meals. She did not mind the view, it was beautiful, but the loneliness weighed on her more than gravity ever could. Her species, the Tellurians, were known for their wisdom and thoughtfulness. But that same caution made them distant. Other aliens avoided approaching her, unsure if speaking to Lyria would be correct, polite, or acceptable. They whispered behind her back, gave her polite nods, but never sat close. In a station built for interaction and exchange, she felt like a ghost. Lyria adjusted her cloak, a long robe of deep purple that shimmered in the soft station lights. Her hands rested on the glass, tracing faint circles as she stared into the endless void. Ships passed by like silver streaks, each one a story she would never touch. She had tried to speak with the travelers, offer advice or insight, but they politely excused themselves. "Always alone," she whispered to herself, though the sound barely left her lips. It was not despair. She had long since accepted her solitude. Still, a small hope lingered that maybe today would be different. And then she saw him. The human pilot did not rush into the lounge. He entered quietly, his boots making soft clicks against the polished floor. His uniform was simple, navy with a stripe of white along the shoulders, but it carried a sense of authority without arrogance. His eyes scanned the room, resting briefly on each alien group before settling on Lyria. He paused, not for fear but for curiosity. Humans were rare on this station. Many species regarded them as reckless or strange. Yet there was something in his gaze that seemed kind, steady, and unafraid. He walked slowly, deliberately, toward the window where Lyria sat. She stiffened. No one had ever come to her willingly. She expected him to stop, to turn away, to find someone more appropriate. But he did not. He stopped beside her and looked out at the stars. "Mind if I sit?" he asked softly. Lyria blinked. She had not heard words like this directed at her in decades. No one had ever asked. Not a merchant, not a diplomat, not a visiting explorer. "Why, yes," she said, almost hesitant. He smiled, a small curve of his lips. He lowered himself onto the bench beside her. The human did not crowd her, did not demand attention, yet he was there. Present, real. For a long moment they watched the stars together. No words were needed. Lyria felt a strange warmth, the kind that came from being seen without judgment. She wanted to speak, but the right words did not come. Finally, the human turned to her. "I'm Elias," he said, "Captain Elias Vance. I just arrived on station." "Lyria," she replied. The single word felt heavy on her tongue, as if she had been holding it back for years. Elias nodded. "I've never seen anyone sit here alone before. Most people avoid this lounge unless they know someone. It's quiet, though. I like quiet." Lyria's shoulders relaxed. He did not judge her silence, he simply shared it. That was a human way, she realized, a willingness to exist alongside someone without forcing interaction. The calm was broken by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed along the walls and a deep voice echoed over the station's speakers. "Warning. Asteroid fragment detected on collision course with station. All personnel, prepare emergency protocols." Lyria's heart skipped. The lounge cleared quickly as aliens rushed to their stations, shouting orders in strange languages. The humans and Tellurians were trained for emergencies, but the protocols were rigid. Every move had to be precise. Elias stood quickly. "We need to help," he said. His voice was steady, confident. Lyria nodded, though her instincts told her to stay calm and follow procedure. But Elias did not wait for permission. He started moving toward the station's control room. Lyria followed, partly out of duty, partly out of curiosity. Humans moved differently. They adapted, adjusted, and took risks that others never would. That impulsive bravery was frightening and fascinating. The control room was chaos. Aliens were running calculations, adjusting shields and shouting orders in a dozen different languages. Lyria's species had the most advanced prediction algorithms, but even their AI systems struggled with this fragment's erratic trajectory. "Let me see," Elias said, stepping forward without hesitation. He touched the console, bypassing complex protocols and initiating a new calculation. It was unusual, dangerous even, but the human's fingers moved confidently, intuitively. "Captain, that's against regulation," an alien engineer shouted. "Trust me," Elias said simply. There was no arrogance, only certainty. Lyria watched, heart pounding. His instincts were strange to her, almost reckless, but they worked. The calculations adjusted in real time, accounting for the fragment's sudden changes. He combined raw intuition with careful observation, a human way of solving problems. "Your systems are strong," Elias said, glancing at Lyria, "but sometimes you overthink. You calculate every possibility except the one that's obvious." Lyria frowned but could not argue. She had spent hours analyzing scenarios, running endless simulations, and still could not adjust fast enough. This human was doing in minutes what took her species hours. "Redirect your drones," Elias instructed. "We need to nudge the fragment slightly off course. Just enough to avoid collision without damaging the station." The aliens hesitated. They had never allowed improvisation, but seeing the human's calm, clear focus, they followed. Lyria took a deep breath and joined him. She coordinated with the station's AI, guiding drones and adjusting shields. The human's confidence was contagious. Moments later, a deep rumble shook the station. The fragment grazed past the outer shields. The lights flickered, then stabilized. The danger passed. Cheers erupted from the remaining personnel. Some aliens looked shocked, some amazed, but Lyria simply stared at Elias. He had saved them all with a simple combination of bravery and intelligence, human traits she had never fully understood until now. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded. "You did well too. Your calculations kept us safe. I just added a little human instinct." Lyria laughed softly, a sound she rarely made in public. It was light, warm, and free. After the commotion died down, the station began to return to normal. People resumed their routines and the lounge slowly emptied. Lyria and Elias returned to the observation window. "You don't need to sit alone anymore," Elias said. He lowered himself next to her again softly, without hesitation. For the first time in a long while, Lyria felt the weight of isolation lift. The human did not care that she was overlooked, that others avoided her. He simply sat beside her, sharing the quiet, sharing the stars. "Why did you sit with me?" she asked. Elias shrugged. "I saw someone who was alone. That's enough reason for me." The simplicity of his answer struck her. Humans, she realized, did not need complex reasons to act kindly. They did not wait for approval or follow endless rules. They simply did what was right or what felt right in the moment. "I think," Lyria said, "I may like humans." Elias smiled. "I hope you do, because we're a bit stubborn, but we try." As they sat, the stars outside the window seemed brighter, more alive. Lyria felt hope stirring in her chest, a small ember she had thought long extinguished. The station would continue to hum with life, full of strangers and rules and endless customs. But now, there was one human who made her feel seen. And maybe, just maybe, she would not be alone anymore. The soft hum of the station, the gentle light of distant stars, and the quiet presence of the human pilot made Lyria realize something profound. Sometimes it was not the grand gestures, the speeches, or the formalities that mattered. Sometimes it was as simple as sitting beside someone, offering presence and acting with kindness. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of uncertainties. But here, in this quiet lounge, at this quiet moment, Lyria felt a connection stronger than any star. Elias looked out at the stars, then glanced at her. "We might face more challenges," he said, "but somehow I feel like we can handle them together." Lyria nodded. She did not need to speak the words aloud. The stars, the silence, the human pilot sitting softly beside her said everything. For the first time in her life, she felt the universe was not quite so lonely. And that small, simple act, someone sitting beside her, was the beginning of a story neither of them would ever forget. The station was buzzing with renewed energy. Even after the asteroid fragment passed by, tension remained in the air. Aliens whispered in corners, exchanging glances and calculations. Humans, especially Captain Elias Vance, seemed almost too calm. Lyria found it strange at first, then realized it was not carelessness, it was confidence. "Lyria," Elias said, approaching her at the observation lounge, "we need to check the outer sectors. Something about that fragment doesn't feel right. It wasn't just random space debris." Lyria frowned. "You think it was intentional?" Elias shrugged. "Maybe not intentional. But the trajectory was odd, too precise for something natural." Lyria's antennas twitched slightly, a sign of nervousness. She was trained to read space anomalies, and she agreed that something was off. "Then we should gather data immediately." Together, they made their way to the station's observation decks. The hallways were filled with aliens moving briskly, following strict protocols. Lyria noticed the difference between humans and aliens again. Humans acted decisively, while aliens often paused to calculate and debate endlessly. Elias moved with purpose. "We can't wait for all the protocols. Time is critical." The first sensor reading shocked them both. The fragment's trajectory was not random. It was being guided by a small, invisible object, almost like a probe. The AI tried to identify it, but its alien programming struggled with this anomaly. Lyria frowned. "This is beyond normal space debris," she said. Elias leaned closer to the console. "Then we'll have to handle it manually." Lyria raised an eyebrow. "Manually? That is risky." "Human risky," he said with a small grin. "Sometimes you just have to act instead of overthinking." Despite her reservations, Lyria followed. She was curious about this human courage she had seen in action during the asteroid incident. Humans seemed fearless in situations that would paralyze others. They moved to the station's external docking bay. Outside, the void stretched endlessly, dotted with distant stars. The fragment or probe drifted silently, small but dangerous. Elias suited up quickly, checking each strap and seal. Lyria observed every movement. Humans moved fast, decisively, without hesitation. "Ready?" Elias asked, his voice steady through the comms. "As ready as I'll ever be," Lyria replied. She activated her own suit, feeling the familiar hum of the life support systems. They floated outside the station, tethered carefully to the docking arms. Lyria's species could manipulate energy fields slightly, but in open space, human ingenuity proved more versatile. Elias adjusted the tether and positioned himself near the probe. "This thing is small, but it's intelligent," Elias said. "It's reacting to our movements, almost like it knows we're here." Lyria watched as he extended a small tool, human improvisation at its finest. He worked quickly, bypassing the AI controls and manually rerouting energy to neutralize the probe. "Be careful," Lyria warned, though she had no doubt he was aware. Elias' hands moved with precision, guided by instinct. "Sometimes the best plan is just to start. Let your mind adjust as you go." Lyria frowned. She was trained to calculate, predict, and plan. But watching Elias, she realized humans were not just smart, they were adaptive. They solved problems in real time, even without complete information. The probe shivered in space, then seemed to pause. It was reacting, calculating, learning. Lyria's eyes widened. "It's trying to escape," Elias nodded. "Let it try. We'll stay one step ahead." Minutes passed like hours. Every movement mattered. Lyria directed energy fields to block escape routes, while Elias manually manipulated the probe's trajectory. Together, they created a dynamic strategy, alien precision paired with human improvisation. Suddenly, The probe emitted a bright pulse, temporarily disabling some of the station's external sensors. Lyria felt a shockwave ripple through the tether. "It's stronger than I thought." Elias gritted his teeth. "Keep calm. Focus on what we can control." Lyria adjusted her energy shields, protecting both of them from the pulse. Elias, meanwhile, found a weak spot in the probe's energy core. Without hesitation, he applied pressure with a small tool and a controlled spark ran along its surface. The probe's movement stuttered, then halted. "We've got it," Elias said calmly. "Now we just need to contain it." Using a combination of human improvisation and Lyria's precise calculations, they directed the probe into a containment field. The device floated silently, neutralized but intact. Lyria exhaled. She had never seen a human act with such confidence under pressure. As they returned to the station, she realized something profound. Humans were not always the strongest, the fastest, or the most intelligent in traditional measures. But in chaos, in danger, in moments where rules failed, humans thrived. They adapted. They acted. They saved lives. Back inside, the station personnel crowded around. Aliens murmured among themselves, some impressed, others skeptical. Elias shrugged. "It's not about proving anything. We just do what's necessary." Lyria smiled softly. She had wanted connection, understanding, and perhaps recognition. She realized she had found it, not through words but through action. The station's command officer approached. A tall, angular alien with silver markings across the face. "Captain Vance, your actions saved this station. Our protocols would have delayed response, but your methods were effective." Elias nodded politely. "I'm just glad we prevented disaster. That's what matters." The officer turned to Lyria. "And you, Lyria. Your guidance and calculations were critical. The human alone could not have succeeded." She felt a warmth spread across her chest. For the first time, her contributions were acknowledged, not just by her own species, but by others. And she realized it was the human beside her who had made it possible. His courage had inspired her own skills to shine. As the crowd dispersed, Elias returned to her side. "Not bad," he said casually, as if it were nothing extraordinary. Lyria laughed. "Not bad. We just prevented a disaster that could have destroyed this station." He grinned. "Humans have a different scale for excitement. We get used to danger, makes calm moments feel really calm." She shook her head, smiling. "I don't know if I'll ever get used to humans." "You'll learn," he said softly. "They're not all reckless. Some of us just act when it counts." For hours, they reviewed data, analyzed the probe, and discussed what could have happened. Lyria found herself relaxing in his presence. Humans were not bound by the endless hesitation that dominated alien cultures. They acted decisively and often correctly. Suddenly, the station's sensors picked up something new, a faint signal deep from space, beyond the asteroid belt. It was weak, almost imperceptible. But it carried a pattern, something that suggested intelligence. Lyria's antennas twitched with excitement. "That signal, it's deliberate. Someone or something is out there." Elias leaned over the console. "Looks like adventure, or trouble, or both." Lyria frowned. "The station cannot handle unknown signals. They require careful observation and protocol." Elias shook his head gently. "Sometimes you don't have the luxury of time. We investigate, we adapt, we act. That's what humans do." She watched him, fascinated. Every movement was purposeful, every choice made with instinct and courage. This was why humans survived, thrived, and inspired others across the galaxy. Lyria felt a spark of admiration, mixed with something deeper, a connection, a shared purpose. The signal pulsed again, slightly stronger. Lyria tapped her console, enhancing the detection. Patterns emerged, coordinates, energy signatures, and a faint message. It was cryptic but unmistakable, intelligence. "We need to follow it," Elias said, quickly. "If it's out there, it could be a threat or an opportunity. Either way, we act." Lyria hesitated. Following an unknown signal was dangerous. The station's council would never approve, but she looked at Elias confident and calm and felt an unfamiliar excitement. Humans did not wait for permission, they acted. "Very well," she said. "We will follow it together." Elias smiled, a quiet, reassuring grin. "Good, that's all we need, teamwork." As they prepared their ship for departure, Lyria felt the weight of the station's isolation lift further. No longer was she the invisible Tellurian in the observation lounge. She had an ally, a human who respected her skills, shared her mission, and valued her presence. She looked out at the stars one last time before departure. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers and opportunities. But for the first time in her life, she felt ready. With the human pilot beside her, she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The engines roared to life, filling the quiet station with vibration. Stars blurred into streaks of light as the ship accelerated. Lyria and Elias sat side by side in the cockpit, the glow of displays reflecting in their eyes. "The unknown awaits," Elias said. Lyria nodded, her heart racing. "Then we face it together." And as the ship disappeared into the void, a silent promise formed between them. Humans and aliens, wisdom and courage, intellect and instinct, united against the unknown challenges of the universe. The stars stretched endlessly before them as Lyria and Captain Elias Vance piloted their small exploration ship through the void. The mysterious signal pulsed faintly in the distance, guiding them deeper into uncharted space. Lyria's fingers hovered over the controls, adjusting energy readings and shielding. Her species, the Tellurians, had always prized precision. Every calculation was exact, every move deliberate. Elias, on the other hand, navigated with instinct, adjusting to the unexpected without hesitation. Their styles were different, yet perfectly complementary. "Are you sure this signal isn't a trap?" Lyria asked, her voice steady but cautious. Elias shrugged. "Maybe, but waiting won't help. We act, we adapt, we survive. Humans do it every day." Lyria studied him for a moment. Humans were reckless in ways she could not fully understand, yet they thrived in situations that paralyzed others. And so far, his instincts had saved the station, and her life. The ship passed through an asteroid field, the glowing rocks drifting silently against the black. Lyria calculated each trajectory, predicting potential collisions, while Elias maneuvered the ship instinctively, sliding through tight spaces with precision only a human pilot could manage. "Your calculations are perfect," Elias said, grinning as they cleared the last of the debris. "But sometimes you need to trust your gut." "I'm learning," Lyria admitted, a small smile breaking her usual reserve. Finally, they arrived at the source of the signal, a derelict alien vessel, enormous and shadowed against a nearby black hole. Its hull was pitted and scarred, but it radiated a faint energy signature. Lyria's antennas twitched in curiosity and caution. "This ship, it's old," she said, "and it's unstable. One wrong move could trigger a collapse." Elias nodded. "Then we move carefully but quickly. That's the human way." They docked with precision, the magnetic clamps holding their ship in place as Lyria stabilized energy shields around the exterior. The interior of the derelict was dark, corridors echoing with faint hums. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing in rhythm with the signal. "Be on guard," Lyria warned. "We don't know what we'll find." Elias simply smiled. "We'll face it together." As they explored, the corridors twisted unpredictably. Parts of the ship seemed alive, almost as if it responded to their presence. Lyria adjusted sensors, tracking the signal. It led them to a central chamber where an enormous console hummed with energy. The room was filled with crystalline structures, floating and spinning slowly. "This technology," Lyria whispered, "it's unlike anything we've seen." Elias approached cautiously. "We need to decode it. Maybe it's a message or a warning." Lyria's fingers danced across the alien interface. The symbols shifted and reformed, responding to her touch. "It's complicated," she admitted. But with your unique approach, we might succeed. Elias nodded. He didn't know the symbols, but he observed patterns, tested responses, and improvised solutions. Lyria watched in awe. His human intuition allowed him to see connections she would have missed, to try actions without fear of failure. Minutes passed, and the console began to stabilize. A holographic map appeared, showing a star system with multiple coordinates marked. One in particular pulsed brighter than the others. "That's the source," Elias said. "Whatever sent the signal, it's here." Lyria calculated carefully. "The black hole's gravity is intense. Navigating there will require precise timing and shielding adjustments." Elias grinned. "Good thing we make a good team." They launched from the derelict, moving toward the marked coordinates. The gravitational pull of the black hole tugged at their ship, distorting sensors and challenging every calculation. Lyria relied on precision, Elias on instinct. Together, they navigated the turbulent space. Finally, they reached a small planet orbiting the black hole. Its surface was covered in crystalline structures similar to those inside the derelict vessel. A faint energy signal pulsed continuously. "This is incredible," Lyria said. "The signal isn't a weapon, it's a beacon." Elias' eyes sparkled with curiosity. "A message. From who?" Lyria studied the readings. "The energy patterns suggest a long-lost alien civilization. They wanted their knowledge preserved, perhaps shared with those capable of understanding." Elias chuckled softly. "Well, that's humans and Tellurians then." They landed near the beacon. Lyria's species could interface with the crystalline structures, reading energy pulses and translating them into data. Elias assisted in his own way, manipulating devices physically, testing responses, and improvising solutions where traditional methods failed. Hours passed. Slowly, the beacon's secrets unfolded. It contained scientific data, star maps, and messages about survival, energy manipulation, and navigation through dangerous regions of space. The information could save countless lives across multiple species. "This is amazing," Lyria said, awestruck. "This knowledge, it could change everything." Elias nodded. "And we're the first to find it. Humans have a knack for survival, curiosity, and a little stubborn courage. But you made this possible with your calculations." Lyria felt a warmth in her chest. "We made it possible together." Their work was not without risk. The energy fields around the beacon pulsed unpredictably, threatening to overload. Lyria calculated a containment strategy, while Elias tested adjustments in real time. One wrong move could collapse the structures, losing the knowledge forever. Elias smiled confidently. "Ready for some human improvisation?" Lyria hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, let's do it carefully." He manipulated the outer controls while she adjusted the containment fields. Sparks flew and lights flickered, but their combined efforts stabilized the system. The beacon pulsed once, brighter than before, as if acknowledging their success. Lyria exhaled. "We did it. The data is secure." Elias nodded, a small grin on his face. "Humans aren't always perfect, but we get the job done." They returned to their ship, carrying the knowledge safely. As they traveled back to the station, Lyria reflected on everything that had happened. Humans were not just brave, they were adaptable, persistent, and capable of inspiring trust and cooperation. Elias had shown her a new way to approach challenges, with courage, intuition, and heart. Back at the station, the council gathered to examine the data. Aliens who had once doubted the human pilot's methods now watched with awe as the information unfolded. Star maps, energy systems, and survival strategies. This was a treasure beyond imagination. The council's leader, a tall alien with silver markings, spoke carefully. "Captain Vance, Lyria, your actions have preserved knowledge that could benefit all species. Humans are remarkable, and this Tellurian skill, combined with your courage, has saved this knowledge from being lost forever." Elias bowed slightly. "We did what we had to do." "That's all." Lyria smiled at him. For the first time, she felt a true partnership, an understanding that transcended species. Humans were different, yes, but their qualities, courage, intuition, empathy, made them extraordinary allies. In the quiet observation lounge later, Lyria looked at the stars. Elias joined her, sitting softly beside her as before. "Do you ever feel small?" she asked. Elias shook his head. "Not really. Humans see problems as challenges. You face them, adapt, and grow." "It's how we survive and how we thrive," Lyria nodded. "And I have learned from you. I understand humans better now, and I respect them perhaps more than I expected." He smiled. "Respect is earned, not given, and you've earned it." For a long while they sat in silence, watching the stars. Lyria felt a deep sense of peace and connection. The universe was vast, full of dangers, mysteries, and wonders. But she knew that, with humans like Elias, courage and wisdom could overcome almost anything. The station's lounge, once a place of isolation for her, now felt warm. She realized that being seen was more than recognition. It was trust, partnership, and shared experience. "We'll have more adventures," Elias said, almost casually. "And probably more danger," Lyria smiled. "I'll face them with you." The stars outside stretched into infinity. Lyria felt hope, courage, and a sense of belonging. Humans were not just strange and unpredictable, they were extraordinary. And in their way, they reminded her that even in the cold expanse of space, connection and bravery could light the darkness. The quiet companionship, the shared victories, and the trust between them spoke louder than any ceremony or protocol. Lyria knew, without doubt, that she would never sit alone again. And somewhere in the endless expanse of stars, she realized a simple truth. Humans were remarkable not because they were perfect, but because they dared to act, dared to care, and dared to sit softly beside someone who needed them most. The universe awaited, but she was ready, because she was no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever came next.